My name is Kathleen Sullivan, and I work for the Virginia Dare Soil and Water Conservation District. I am the district manager there. Today's topic is the Chesapeake Bay Watershed. So we want to explore what the Chesapeake Bay Watershed is. Today I have the Enviroscape model, and it demonstrates actually what our watershed looks like. So a watershed is the land area draining into a larger body of water. Our Chesapeake Bay Watershed, we have 6 states that feed into the watershed, and we have over 18 million people living in the watershed. In the Chesapeake Bay Watershed, we have different areas making up our watershed. We have agriculture, so we have some farms in our watershed. We also have urban areas in the Chesapeake Bay Watershed. And we live in suburban areas in the Chesapeake Bay Watershed. And we have factories, and we also have the largest Navy base in the world in Hampton Roads that is part of our Chesapeake Bay Watershed. We have roads and highways, we have mountains, and all of the activities from the 18 million people that are in our Chesapeake Bay Watershed can impact our sea animals that live in our Chesapeake Bay Watershed. Also the plant life that is in the watershed. Everything that we do in our watershed can affect other things in the watershed. And sometimes in our watershed, we put pollution down. Sometimes we can see this pollution, then that's that point source pollution. Other times we have non-point source pollution. We're not even sure that that pollution is on the ground and how it can affect the life that is in the Chesapeake Bay. So sometimes we have fertilizer in our agriculture area. We're also using that in the suburban, urban areas. We have construction site, they're using it there as well, and pretty much all over our watershed. So the land areas up here, we have this pollution down. We're gonna go ahead and put some pesticide because we use pesticides everywhere in this watershed. And we don't really think about that, and we don't see that type of pollution. That's that non-point source pollution, but it's down on the ground. We also have soil erosion going on here in the construction site. We have some up here at the farm, even in urban and suburban areas. And here on the Chesapeake Bay, that is in the Atlantic Ocean. This is your beach area in your Chesapeake Bay. And we will have soil erosion there as well. And that's occurring naturally. So we have some of that down on the ground. With all those 18 million people in our watershed, sometimes we have oil spills down at the farm, on our roads and our highways, in our urban or suburban area, coming from these factories. That's that point source pollution. And it's coming right down on our beaches, and we can see that. And then we have a huge problem with pollution again. 18 million people living in our watershed. We love our pets, we love our animals, but sometimes they're going to the bathroom outside. And we don't really pay attention to that, and we don't think about that as pollution. But another type of pollution that we do know, and we know it's pollution, but people are still littering and throwing trash down on the ground in our watershed. Our watershed is the land area that is draining into a larger body of water. So we have all of this non-point source pollution sitting on the ground. Remember, the watershed is the land area. It's on the ground, and then we have precipitation. All of that pollution begins to run off from the land, which is our watershed, down into our lakes, our rivers, and our streams. The Chesapeake Bay has 150 rivers and streams that are coming down into the Chesapeake Bay. So everything we do in our watershed ends up downstream, and it goes into our Chesapeake Bay, and that is where our sea life is and our plant life. So we have some whales in here, or dolphins, sharks, we have our coral reef, we have different plant life that can be affected by all of this pollution that happens in our watershed. So we need to take the time and learn about our Chesapeake Bay watershed, learn about some conservation efforts that we can put on the ground so we can protect all of our plant life, our sea life, and conserve this wonderful, wonderful watershed of the Chesapeake Bay. Thank you so much, and learn about our Chesapeake Bay.